Hello, everybody. Sorry we're a little bit behind. My pleasure. Hello.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. You don't know me, but my name is John Clarkson. Grew up in Mercer County. I attended Rutgers University, and I currently work for the New York Times. I'm also lucky to have a job that actually uses my major, not something that all English majors can actually say. But from a high level, you could say that life is good. I have a great job. I work for a renowned and respected organization, and I have fun most of the time I'm actually at work. But it wasn't always so breezy. And I'm willing to bet that it's not as breezy for a lot of people who were in my position when I found myself defaulting on my student loans last fall. I graduated in 2014, and landing a full-time job that actually used the education that I had gone into debt for was extremely difficult. I spent 2 to 3 years working as a bartender and waiting around tables at various restaurants, all the while still paying back my student loans. So while I was working long and hard hours, I ended up devoting half of my paychecks to go towards a student loan that I still hadn't been able to employ for me after I graduated and finished my education. So I stopped paying them. Fast forward to fall of 2018 last year. I received the summons that I was going to begin the judicial process of defaulting on student loans. It was terrifying. I'd only recently secured my position at the Times, and while it's a great job, it doesn't pay that well. And beginning my new career with this massive problem looming over me was, again, terrifying. In proper reaction to the summons, I sought legal counsel and eventually found myself at the door of HESAA. At the time, the restructure initiatives for student loans weren't exactly where they are now, but over a course of about a month, I was able to work with HESA and establish a payment plan and a rate that worked for me where I am right now in my current professional young life. In short, being able to have a conversation with a person at HESA who could make an impact and a difference for my loans was fantastic, but the real merit that came out that I felt as I proceeded through the program was that they actively offered that to me. It wasn't, I didn't have to fight for it, they gave it to me. To close, my inability to pay back loans are not isolated to me. It's not rare. There's a lot of students just like me in my position who need the assistance that this program is going to offer. And the programs being announced today are a great step towards helping students just like me. I want to thank Governor Murphy, HESSA Director David Soklow, Secretary of Higher Education Zakia Smith-Ellis, Assemblyman Ralph Caputo, Assemblywoman Mila Jassy, Assemblyman Gary Scher, Assemblyman Dan Benson, and Senator Sandra Cunningham for their leadership to help others, like myself, who will benefit from this bill. Without further ado, here's the Governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy.
Thank you. Really well done, man. Really well done. John is a living embodiment of what we're codifying today. And he mentioned that he worked for the New York Times, but I don't think he mentioned what he does, because he might have the coolest job at the New York Times. And my wife was here for this singular reason, because she's one of his biggest customers. He edits the crossword puzzle of the New York Times. You talk about putting your English major to good use, right? So, John, thank you, man. Appreciate everybody joining us this morning. And again, John, thanks for being here and sharing your story with us. Under our administration, New Jersey has begun to remove a significant weight from the shoulders of residents who are burdened by levels of college debt that are not only preventing them from moving forward with their lives, but which threaten to hold their very financial futures hostage. And you heard that from John. By the way, Tammy, you came just to hear John. I know you've got other things to do, so go up and do that crossword. Today, I am proud to sign 2 bills into law that will codify and strengthen these efforts. I'm honored to be joined by the sponsors of the bills and leaders in the legislature. Senator Sandra Cunningham, I don't know where we'd be without your leadership in higher ed and in everything related, so thank you. Two gentlemen to my right, Assemblyman Ralph Caputo and Assemblyman Gary Scher. Thank you guys for your leadership on this and so much. I also want to give a shout out to Education Chair and a leader in this crusade in so many respects, Assemblywoman Mila Jassy in seat 1A right here. And then in absentia, Senator Teresa Ruiz and Assemblyman Dan Benson, who were very instrumental in pushing these bills across the goal line. So please join me. And I am honored that we are also joined by the Secretary. I'm going to start to the Secretary. That's going to stop the rest of this from now on, of Higher Education, Dr. Zakia Smith Ellis. And by David Socolow, Executive Director of the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. David, great to have you. So the measures I'm signing today will codify HESA's reforms to the state's NJ Class Higher Education Loan Program to make it more responsive to the immediate financial needs of borrowers. They will give real peace of mind to countless borrowers juggling their student loan repayments in the face of joblessness or other financial distress. The last thing we want is a system so rigid and insensitive that it leaves borrowers, through no fault of their own, by the way, no way out and no way forward. We need a system that allows residents the flexibility when they are facing financial insecurity or hardship to change their repayment schedules so they can still afford to pay the rent or to put gas in the car or to provide for their families. We need a system that is transparent in its processes and follows a clear and set path that allows borrowers to work their way back from the brink so that they do not default on their student loans. And we need a system that provides practical assistance to those whose loans are already in default by offering balanced installment plans that are within their means so borrowers can repay their defaulted loans and repair their credit rating as they faithfully follow a revised and more affordable repayment schedule. Since I took office, HESA has worked to build this new system. It developed a new repayment assistance program that allows borrowers to make more affordable payments based on their income. Today, that program becomes law, meaning that it will be available to future graduates for generations to come. It's nice that we've got great leadership that is doing the right thing in assuming and capturing a best practice, but let's make it the law, no matter who the leaders are, that forever and for always, this is the way it's going to be in New Jersey. So again, today it's going to become law, so it'll guarantee that future generations will be able to partake in it. The new loan restructuring programs we're strengthening today will provide the lifeline that many borrowers need to get themselves back in control of their loans instead of their loans controlling them. It will create real options to keep borrowers out of default. And these bills will also help those borrowers who are in default repay their defaulted loans through affordable monthly payments. Even more significantly, the legislation gives HESA the ability to repair the credit ratings of borrowers who comply with the new payment plans, ensuring that these individuals don't face disadvantages of employment, housing, and finance. These measures will keep life in New Jersey affordable for countless residents who feared for their and their families' financial futures. These reforms were a long time coming, and I know that for David and Senator Cunningham, in particular among the other sponsors, today is the ending of a more than 3-year-long effort culminating in your positive cooperation on these reforms since David and his team started at HESA in early 2018. And I thank those who advocated for these bills, including New Jersey Citizen Action and Legal Services of New Jersey. So, you're here. I am proud that we have made these reforms permanent going forward in recognition of your commitment and hard work on behalf of our residents. And more importantly, I'm proud that we are giving borrowers the more open, more transparent, and frankly, more humane system they deserve. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Secretary of Higher Education, Dr. Zakia Smith Ellis.
So I will be brief, but just on a personal note, this is an issue that doesn't get enough attention. It's getting more attention now, and when I came to New Jersey, I was glad to see that we had a legislature that was focused on this and that was thinking about how to right some of the wrongs that the agency had done in the past. I was really interested to know when I took this job who is going to be executive director of HESA, because I want to make sure that what's happening there, we're able to partner with them to talk about college affordability in a way that's not just about what we do for students on the front end, which is so important. It's important to make sure that students have affordable options. We're doing tuition-free community college, also in partnership with HESA. But what are we doing to make sure that people who are in repayment now have affordable ways to repay those loans? And particularly given some of the more distressing cases that you hear about people who are really, really struggling. And personally, I worked on loan repayment issues in the Obama administration, including creating affordable loan repayment options at the federal level. So to have somebody who was so committed, and I knew David from our previous work together, actually, so to know that he was had a similar set of values, I knew we would be able to work well together. And so the fact that HESA is able to move forward and these bills will now allow us to ensure that this is not just a one-time thing, and if someone, years from now comes and tries to do something else, that they will have to really change the law in order to change that practice, is so meaningful. I'm very glad that we're able to do this, and it's going to be meaningful for people who are repaying their loans and for students who are young students who may be coming up along the way. So I'm glad to be here, and we'll turn it over to David to be able to talk more in detail about what these bills will do.
All right, thank you, Zakia.
Well, thank you very much, Zakia, for your partnership and for everything we do together. And thank you, Governor Murphy, for your leadership. Every day we hear from New Jersey families who struggle with student loan debt. And Governor, thanks to your focus on this issue, we today are making things better for many of our fellow citizens. The laws you signed today provide more affordable repayment of New Jersey class family loans and also help New Jersey families whose NJ class loans are in default. I also want to add my thanks of appreciation to the bill's sponsors, to Senate Higher Education Committee Chairwoman Sandra Cunningham, to the Assembly Higher Ed Committee Chairwoman Myla Jacey, to Senator Ruiz and Assemblyman Benson, and to Assemblyman Caputo and Cher, who are here as well today. Because of all of your work in the legislature, identifying the concerns with the NJ Class Loan Program several years ago, and your tenacity and caring about your fellow New Jerseyans, this issue was one of the top items in my agenda when Governor Murphy appointed me to this role last year. It's been a real pleasure working with all of you in crafting the details of these bills and on our efforts to reform the NJ Class Loan Program. I also want to give our deep thanks to the colleagues that I have, the talented men and women of HESA, who over the past year have embraced a renewed commitment to continuous improvement and creativity in finding new ways to help the New Jersey students and families we serve. And I do want to thank particularly Beverly Brown-Ruggia and David McMillan from New Jersey Citizen Action and New Jersey Legal Services for your thoughtful advocacy and for your good counsel. Post-secondary education is not only an opportunity for students to explore and expand their horizons, it's the main gateway to economic mobility. And by completing college, our residents can compete for the good jobs they need and that are the key to New Jersey's knowledge-based economy. But that value proposition doesn't add up for students and their families facing unaffordable student loan repayment costs. The burdens of these debts can impact their decisions about changing jobs, buying a home, starting a family, saving for retirement. And federal direct loans are capped at no more than $31,000 for a dependent student's entire undergraduate career, whether that takes 4 years or 5 years or longer. And so with the rising cost of college, many families need supplemental loans to bridge the gap and cover the post-secondary education costs after the students exhaust all the federal and state and other grants and scholarships. So our state's NJ class loans, funded through bonds without any state appropriation, meet the need for a supplemental loan like the federal Parent Plus loan. More than 90% of NJ class loans are co-signed by the student's family, which is why we call them family loans. And if not for the competitive interest rate that NJ class family loans offer using the state's tax-exempt bond financing, most of New Jersey's middle-class families would turn to private lenders for supplemental loans. Nearly 40% of NJ class loan borrowers have incomes between $40,000 and $80,000. Typically, they would be paying much higher interest rates for private loans, or 7.6% for the Federal Plus loan, compared to the between 4.7 and 7% for New Jersey class loans. But as Zakia mentioned, while these loans can be useful to many New Jersey families in the past, HESA did not do enough to assist borrowers facing financial difficulties. Far too many could not avoid a student loan default, leading to dramatic negative effects on these families' finances and credit scores. So, at the start of the Murphy administration in 2018, we immediately went to work to change this, developing new ways to offer New Jersey class loan borrowers more affordable repayment options when they and their co-signers experience economic hardships, working within the rules of the bonds that finance NJ class loans without any state funding. Last June, we added the new Household Income Affordable Repayment Plan, HARP, which works in tandem with the Repayment Assistance Plan, RAP, that HESA had started in 2017. Before 2018, HESA had no way to help students and families who exhausted the 2-year deferment of RAP and had economic difficulties that lasted for a longer period. Now, through HARP, families whose economic hardship persists can qualify for longer-term affordable repayment plans based on an annual check of income of all the parties to the loan. In addition, we took an entirely new approach to helping borrowers with loans that have already defaulted. In the case of John and many others, we now work out installment plans that can save these borrowers hundreds of dollars per month and repair their credit reports once they show they're on the road to getting out of default by completing 9 out of 10 on-time affordable monthly payments. I am delighted that these policies will now continue thanks to the laws that Governor Murphy is signing today. But Governor, as you know, we are not finished. Starting this fall, we are planning to offer a new option for borrowers to refinance their student loans with 15-year terms and lower monthly payments, as well as expanding money-saving loan refinancing not only to students with NJ class loans and Federal Plus loans, but also for school-certified loans from private lenders. We're also exploring options for lowering borrowers' interest payments on both standard and consolidated New Jersey class loans and creating interest reduction incentives for borrowers who set up automatic recurring monthly payments. And let me just close by reiterating what Secretary Smith-Ellis said, that while it is important to help borrowers better afford the repayment of their student loans, we still need to do more. And that is why I am proud to play a role in implementing the state higher education plan that Governor Murphy and Secretary Smith-Ellis announced last month, including key strategies to make college education more affordable so students don't need to take out so much in the debt in the first place. To expand opportunities for all our people, we need to attack this problem from every angle. It's a great honor to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Great job, man. Really well done. Thank you, David, and thank you for your leadership. 3 quick points. New Jersey is a proud labor state in every respect, including education. So I want to give Donna Chiara, who runs American Federation of Teachers, a big shout out. Their colleague, Professor David Hughes at Rutgers, representing higher education today. Thank you both for being here. Secondly, we, as we've talked about a lot, face a challenge of keeping more of our high school graduates in New Jersey. And there's a lot of things we're doing to increase that yield. But one of them is making college more affordable, including making the loans that they take out to go to college more affordable, and this is a big part of it. Thirdly, we do not and never will engage in age discrimination. But you might note that the average age in this room today is significantly lower than it normally is. And that is, I'm proud to say, it's take your child to work day. And we're practicing that habit right here in the governor's office. With that, it is my great honor. I don't think you could say this without any hyperbole. We would not have gotten to today, not just without Zakia and David's leadership, but without leadership in the legislature, and no one more so than the chairwoman of the Higher Education Committee, Senator Sandra Cunningham.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. You know, there is nothing more heart-wrenching than to hear a 24-year-old or a 22-year-old student or graduate who says that they think that their life is over. You sit and wonder, what do you mean over? At 22, at 24? How could your life be over? It's beginning. But because of the problems with not being able to repay their loans, they were locked into situations of living with their parents in the basement, and had no feeling or no hopeless feeling that they would ever get out. This is what, unfortunately, I had the privilege of listening to at a public hearing in higher education. It was at that time that Miley, JC, and myself decided we had to do something. Something had to change. And that's when these wonderful people joined us and decided that they wanted to be a part of this. I do thank David Sokolow particularly because my first meeting with David, I don't think I was that friendly as I recall, because by that time I had listened to so many stories and talked to so many parents. I wasn't sure that I believed anything that David would say. But when he said that he thought we could fix this, for me, it made a big difference. And I'm so happy that we're able to, because the most important thing that this legislation codifies is New Jersey's belief that we encourage our children. We don't tear them down before they have an opportunity to fly. We encourage them to go to college. We encourage them to be everything that they want to be or everything that they dream that they can be. And the only way that they can do that is with our support. And these pieces of legislation offers the support that we need to give our younger people. So I'm very proud of this legislation and very happy that we're here today to talk about something that we should never have had to do. It should have happened normally, naturally, but it has. And we're just happy that it's done, and I'm proud of the stand that we're taking today for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. That was really well done. Thank you, Senator. Yeah, I've said this before in different contexts. I also want New Jersey to be, for the folks who play by the rules, the second chance state. That the place you know you can put your life back up, you get back up on your feet. In the particular element of the second bill here, where we will proactively help you repair your credit rating if you have been in default, is a big second chance shot for a lot of young people. So it's not just, as you so eloquently said, it's not just the enormous 8-ball of debt that too many young people are sitting behind as they peer out in their young 20s to a career or maybe more education, but it's for the folks who actually went over the cliff financially. We're putting a hand out and we're getting them back on their feet. And I'm incredibly proud of that aspect of it. And again, Mila, I cannot thank you enough for your leadership in the Assembly. You got 2 colleagues we want to hear from, if that's okay. A guy I feel like I'm with every day and night these days, a great leader, a guy who understands this in his core. He's still working on his Passover beard, Assemblyman Gary Scher.
Good afternoon, everyone. Admittedly, after hearing so many terms today like rap, HISA, and HARP, I feel that I can actually do a New York Times crossword puzzle. I usually stop at the bridge column, but I'll keep this in mind. The governor has spoken so often and so eloquently about his dream, which is a dream shared by the legislature as well, of developing a society which is more friendly to its middle class, which recognizes the needs of the middle class. And certainly the bills before us today do just exactly that. They recognize the difficulties it is that all of us have in terms of paying for higher education and the specific difficulties that students encounter when they can no longer afford to stay in school. These bills make it a possible reality. These bills make it something which is attainable. And for that we are very, very blessed and very, very thankful. To my higher education chair, to our Senate chair, to Ralph, to myself, to Benson, and so many other people who, from the legislature, both in the Assembly and the Senate, applauded when these bills were devised. And all of us said to each other, why didn't we do this before? And Senator, if I can join you in giving our specific and personal accolades to Director Sokolow for his constant nudging and bending and twisting to get these things done, and his constant reaffirmation, but Assemblymen, we're doing it already, so we just want to make it into a law. But making it into a law, as the governor said, is a profound difference from simply doing it pro rata. And the difference is that it now becomes something which must be overturned in order to be changed, and it now codifies for each and every student in this state, both present as well as future, the benefits that they'll derive. This is a step forward for the middle class. This is a step forward for fairness. And as was said also, not at the state expense. HISA is funded by bonds, so students who would unfortunately default, that would not inure to the state's detriment. These are two positive bills, very positive bills, that will make changes, fundamental changes in people's lives. And that perhaps is what government is all about. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done. Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much for your leadership on this. I've got a short list of folks where people say, introduce me, show me somebody who just who oozes New Jersey and what New Jersey is about, the pride, the passion, the wisdom. And high on that list is the next guy on our final speaker. Please help me welcome Assemblyman Ralph Caputo.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the governor for providing this opportunity to sign these two laws. Let me start by commending Chair Lady Mila Jacey, who worked with my staff, Senator Cunningham's staff, and this guy over here, who made us completely confused because it became so complicated. But the fact was that it was a tremendous process that had to be done. We were educated about all the complexities of trying to get these bills accomplished. It was not easy. There were many meetings that took place with Senator Cunningham, our office, OLS. I mean, we can go on. And of course, we had a head start here because this administration, this governor, is trying to turn around a policy that was in stone for 8 years. So this gentleman, Mr. David Sokoloff, came along and said, look, we have a new policy. He explained how those pieces would fit, how we would have something prior to a disaster and after a disaster occurred. So we're trying to do both things to alleviate a very severe problem. And the basic problem is that college costs are just too high. And young people want to go to the best schools they can find. And at that age, they really don't understand the kind of burden that they're putting themselves and their family in. And they shouldn't have to worry about it. But the fact is, it's a reality. And we're trying to fix a problem that's been just tremendously, a tremendous burden for our students. We started with this process by listening to constituents that have come into my office with these various problems. And then, of course, I reached out for Mila. Help Mila, you know. How do we solve this problem? And you know what? We went to work on this. And then we found that Senator Cunningham had already put in a bill, the bill that I ended up sponsoring in the Assembly. And we worked with that bill with David to make sure that it would be appropriate for the state of New Jersey and for our kids. So I couldn't be happier to have this administration work on a national problem, basically, to try to, this not only solves somewhat of a similar problem here in the state, but I think it's going to be nationally recognized as a model for other states to follow. So being the fact that I was a prime sponsor, co-sponsor or whatever, along with this young lady who gave up that sponsorship to me, I don't know why. She doesn't like the limelight, but you know, we can't let her sit there just mind her business. No way. Let's give Mila Jacey a big round of applause. And of course, Senator Cunningham. God bless Senator Cunningham and Gary. Let's give them a round of applause for all the work. And David, I want to thank you again. Please don't come to my office because you give me a migraine headache. I mean, you know, you're helpful, but you know what? I don't want to go back to college. It's too expensive. But thank you, Governor Murphy, for everything that you do. And the fact is that we're turning that ship slowly in all regards in terms of how we deal with some of the major issues that we face in the state. And we've got the right guy at the head of the helm to bring us there. So let's keep the faith, support the governor, and support all of the policies that we really feel that are important to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph. Thanks, buddy. Love it. Well said. Thank you, Ralph, and thanks everybody who's spoken. We're going to sign this in a minute. We'll take a couple of questions from the press if you've got them. Daniel.
Governor, with the EPA board members who said they're not going to resign, who are they, or are you just looking for the resignation?
May I say something that I think embodies what New Jersey, the New Jersey spirit? I noticed that in the national press, it was noted that President Trump has given, quote unquote, the Heisman to members of Congress who have looked for his tax returns and other things. Someone in the press in New Jersey wrote that those board members had given me one of each of their fingers. And I thought that was an interesting contrast between what we deal with in New Jersey and what we deal with in the country. They're the government appointees. We approached them. We laid out our case. They made their decision. We have to respect that decision. We don't agree with them. And as I said yesterday, the chairman and I, who is a very dear friend who's done an enormous amount and continues to do an enormous amount of good, including for our administration, Larry Downs and I spoke last week. We both felt it was the right time to turn the page. The other folks didn't see it that way. That's their decision. They have a First Amendment right. I expect sooner than later, in the next, I hope, number of days, we'll name a new chair, and we'll go from there. Please. We have nothing to announce on that yet. We will likely have an interim head and conduct a broader search for the right talent to run on a more permanent basis. Matt.
The news of a deal on adjustment pricing seems to be a surprise to folks in New York. I mean, what light can you shed on this? Did you speak with Governor Cuomo directly, and what do you make of New York pushing back, saying that there is no deal?
Yeah, I saw, I'm not sure who it was, maybe it was Pat Foy or someone else, and George Helmy, our chief of staff, and Pat go back a long way, and they had a conversation this morning. My comments are based explicitly on principle-to-principle discussions with Governor Cuomo. And as I said, it's a conceptual understanding is the way I put it. There's a lot of distance to travel over the next several years, mostly on the New York side, frankly, to get this into the place they need to get it to. It's a very complicated project. But my first two big interests, as I mentioned yesterday, number one, everybody who's commuting from New Jersey gets treated equally and they don't get taxed doubly. And that includes explicitly the George Washington Bridge, because that's not directly in the zone, which the Lincoln and Holland tunnels are. We need electronic tolling for that. Both Governor Cuomo and I agree on that. But that's number one, where we've got a conceptual understanding. And number two is that New Jersey will have a seat at the table as this evolves and the entire process evolves over the next several years. And I want to reiterate that I appreciate the spirit with which Governor Cuomo has approached this. Please.
Governor, in this regard, with the congestion pricing issue, it seems the more you look at it, the more issues can be raised. You just mentioned that the Lincoln and Holland going into the city, that's going to be in that zone. But if people are automatically going to be charged, let's say they're not going to Midtown, and they live near the Lincoln or the Holland, that's then going to force them up to the GW. It's going to create new issues.
Unintended consequences, et cetera.
My question is, how concerned are you, just from a philosophical point, about New Jersey drivers, New Jersey commuters, really getting stuck in a perhaps an unfair way, and is there any way we can address this?
Well, we won't let it happen is the answer. And you didn't mention this, but another question we get, and it's a rightful one, is how many people would this swing from driving a car into taking a bus or a train, which is another potential unintended consequence. This is very complicated. By the way, this is not my plan. I did not come up with this. But I will tell you this, we will stand strong and make sure that New Jersey commuters are protected, period, full stop, and not asked to pay twice and not be discriminated against us.
Do you think that it's fair to the public as well as the employees of the SBA to not offer any insight or explanation about the resignation of the CEO?
I'm not sure I understand the premise of the question, but Lizette Delgado resigned. We accept her resignation. We thank her for her service, and we turn the page. Who else had one that has asked? Please.
Do you feel like Patrick Ford with the MTA is calling you a liar when it comes to this deal, saying that he has no idea what you're talking about?
You'll have to ask the New York side of the river. My words come directly from conversations with Governor Cuomo. Please. Conceptual understanding is the word I've used, the words I've used, and I'll continue to use. Please.
Governor, on the bill you're signing today that deals with the repayment assistance, I think the fiscal note mentioned that there were just 8 borrowers who are in that program right now. Is that an indication that there's not much demand for such a program, or do you expect there'll be more people that?
Come on down, David. I don't know if the 8 number is right, but we think by signing this and advertising that it's out there, it will attract a lot more interest.
So these programs just started. If you take out a loan in 2017 or 2018, you might be in your first or second year of college. You're obviously not going to run into economic hardship yet. So this will build over time. There are a few people for whom that was perhaps their final year of school. and already ran into difficulty, 8 of them so far that are engaged in the program. But these are brand-new programs.
Thank you for that. So we'll go here, there, and then we'll wrap up here. So 1, 2, 3, please.
Was there any connection to the internal audit done by the SBA and also the separate investigation that was done?
Please don't take this the wrong way. I have literally nothing else to add. Please.
You talk about conceptual frameworks, not the word deal. Why are you using that word, and how ironclad are the promises from Governor Cuomo?
I'm using the words for the very simple reason they just unveiled this 3 weeks ago, and they don't know necessarily where this is going. And so there's the distance between today and where this ends up is miles and miles and miles. It's extremely complicated, no matter who's done it. It's been an extremely complicated process, and I'm saying what I'm saying because it's in the first half of the first inning, and I want to make sure folks in Jersey know that we've got their back. We're looking out for them. They won't be discriminated against. They won't be double taxed. Last one, please. Not my task force, independent task force. I set it up. That's a decision that they will pursue. I have no visibility into that. I remind everyone why we set it up, because the comptroller did an audit, and it turned out they couldn't find 20% of the selected sample size. They couldn't find 20% of the jobs that were claimed or created. And again, I'm not against tax incentives, but I've always said 2 things. Number one, it can't be the only weapon we use. It's got to be part of a broader toolkit, like investing in education, including higher education, transit, healthcare, job creation more generally. And secondly, it's got to, you promise to do X in exchange for Y, you have to do what you promised to do. It has to be transparent, and it has to be monitored and regulated. I'll defer to whatever process that task force goes through. But folks who screwed with the system are going to have to make sure that they make the state whole. I cannot be in any other place. I've got to make sure that, as the chief executive of this state, that we stand up and every penny is counted. With that, I want to thank you, John, for your life story. Keep up the great work on the puzzles. I do accept Gary's comment that maybe we've come up with a couple of clues for future puzzles today. I want to thank Secretary Zakia Smith-Ellis for your leadership in higher education generally. The new master plan, I think, is in a class of 1 in the country. So congratulations. David, you got a lot of hosannas today. I think richly deserved. You did what you said you would do, and I think that's, in life, that's a big deal, and none more so relevantly than here. And to the legislative leadership, Senator Cunningham, Madam Chairwoman, thank you so much. Madam Chairwoman J.C., thank you for your leadership in the Assembly. Ralph and Gary, we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks, everybody. Let's go over and get this thing signed up. How about you go over? Okay, they're the right order. Okay. First of all, the money shot. Without my glasses, I can't see a thing. So. I can't see anything here. So I'm going to sign, first of all, Senate Bill number 3125. This explicitly establishes repayment assistance program and household income affordable repayment plan. Some extraordinary acronyms waiting to be there for the taking, for borrowers of New Jersey college loans to assist state students or NJ class loan program. So this is to give folks some relief who are having a hard time getting through that process. And I'm honored to say that pen number 1 goes to John Clarkson, Rutgers grad, New York Times. Pen number 2 to the Secretary of Higher Education, Dr. Zakia Smith-Ellis. Pen number 3 to David Sokolow, HISA, Executive Director. David, congratulations. Next pen to Chairwoman, Senator, leader in this whole arena, Senator Sandra Cunningham. Bear with me, don't normally have two of these to go at the same time. So this is now, pardon me, Senate Bill number 3149, which establishes process for higher education student assistance authority to declare loans under the New Jersey College Loans to Assist State Students, or NJ Class loan program, as in default or rehabilitated. And this is a big step for the folks who have gone over that fiscal cliff, and this is a reach out to bring them back. So pen number 5 to this one, Assemblyman Gary Shares in the House. Assemblyman Ralph Caputo. Congratulations, man. Well done. Assemblywoman and Chairwoman, I don't know where we'd be without her, Myla Chasen. Myla. And importantly, from New Jersey Citizen Action Financial Justice is Beverly Brown Ridgeview. And last but not least, last pen is for David McMillan of Legal Services of New Jersey. David, congratulations.